Okay, stop me if you've heard this one. You get on your favorite social media app, you post day and night, you work tirelessly for months, you build up a huge following. The followers love your brand, they're engaged, they're liking your post, they're commenting, everything's going great, and then the algorithm changes. Or the social media network gets banned, or the app crashes. Suddenly you lose all your followers and you're left with nothing. What do you do about it? Let's talk about that and my experiences with it today on the Ronin Author. Hi, I'm your host, Ryan McGinnis. I am the owner of S&D Designs, the owner of 217 Press, and a self-published author on Amazon. Today is one of my favorite subjects. I'm surprised I've made it to episode 8 without talking about this yet. It's something I've talked about over and over, and that is the fact that you need to own your audience. There are a few things that I would, this is a no gurus podcast, right? That's the rules, right? Because we're the Ronin Author. No gods, no masters, no gurus. But so I'm not a guru, I'm not an expert, but I will say from my experiences, this is probably one of the most important things you can do as an author. And we're going to be talking about owning your audience and owning your brand and not relying on a social network, not building your brand on somebody else's, building the foundation, I should say. The title of today's episode is officially Don't Build on Shifting Sands. And where that comes from is you're not supposed to build a house on shifting sands. You're supposed to build it on a strong foundation. And I guess in this case, the shifting sands would be the social networks. Because you can build a large following on social networks. I've only been doing the author thing for about 5 years or so now, but I've been doing digital marketing for 16. And in that time, I've seen a lot of things come and go. Tumblr, Facebook's always been there, but sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not. Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram coming and going, YouTube, TikTok exploding out of nowhere, and they all offer different things, and I've had varied levels of success on all these social networks. At one point I posted daily on Twitter, back before it became X and became pretty much, I don't know, just a bunch of bots. But I used to post on Twitter all the time, every day, and I thought that was essential to my book selling. But then it started going downhill. It started being filled with bots. There used to be just a bunch of right-wing agitators or whatever. And, after it got bought, and so I got the heck out of there. And it wasn't the end of the world. But what I've found over the years is all these social networks, they all have their own problems. Like Facebook and Instagram have changed their algorithms, and they're a long way from the true social networks that they used to be. It used to be I could post on Facebook and people would see it. Nowadays, your Facebook feed's clogged with ads, with bots, with suggested posts. No, I just want to see my friends' stuff. And so it's getting harder and harder to rely on those networks. And then, in January and once again in April, and who knows when this is ever going to be resolved, but you've got the whole case of TikTok, where TikTok, has been supposed to be banned in the United States. It's already supposed to have been banned, but they keep postponing enforcement of it because capitalism. But that's another story. But what do you do if you're one of these people that have built up, followers in the millions on TikTok, and that's your whole business, and you sell your products through TikTok? What are you going to do if TikTok closes down? That's going to hurt. It's going to take away like 95% of your business. So what do you do in those cases? I think the solution to that, it's not use the social networks. I think we absolutely should use the social networks. And also I want to preface this by saying, if I said something bad about a social network and you're like, but that's the one that works for me, there's nothing wrong with that. Like in a previous episode, we've talked about there's different paths to success. What works for you won't necessarily work for me, and what works for me won't necessarily work for you. But what I want to talk about is, in addition to working the social networks and doing whatever you want on whatever network you want. If you want to be on all of them and you have the time, cool. I don't have the time, so I pick and choose which ones I'm on, and I might I might get really good reactions from Facebook, whereas you might think Facebook's a total waste of time. So, I mean, we all do things differently, and things work differently for us. But what I wanted to get down to talking about today is, in addition to whatever you do with your social networks, I think it is incredibly, incredibly important to control your brand and to build your own audience. And the way you do that is through email newsletters. Sign up for an email client like MailChimp or MailerLite. Most of them have free accounts, where as long as you have beneath a certain amount of subscribers, it's free. And you need to build, your clientele on that email list. You need to nurture it because that's your people. For instance, in my author business, this is how I make it work. But you could apply this to any business, really, even if you're not an author. I mean, if you're not an author and you're watching this podcast, hey, welcome. The Ronin Author is a welcoming place. We're supposed to be a support group for authors, but by God, if you're watching and you're not an author, I appreciate you too. And I would, if you guys are enjoying this podcast, how about giving me a like or a subscribe? Click the notification bell so you're notified when we come out with new episodes, which we do a new episode every week, every Monday, except for maybe some holidays. But I'll let you guys know ahead of time if that's going to be the case. In any case, here's how I make a mailer list work for me, an email list work for me. This is about the time my second book, The Osiris Initiative, was coming out. I wrote a short story called The Musician's Daughter, which is just a short story. It's not very long. It's just a few chapters, but it was a little mini Xavier Green adventure featuring my protagonist, Xavier Green. And I put an advertisement for it in the back of the Osiris Initiative with a link linking to, the page on my website where you could get your free book. I also put a little plug-in on my site. If you go to ryan-mcginnis.com, you'll see a small box on the front about getting a free book. You'll also see there's a page where you can get a free book. And the thing about these is that I'm offering the book. I'm offering value in exchange for somebody giving me their email address so that I can add them to my mailing list. And I think that's very important. If you just tell people, hey, give me your email address, I'm going to add you to my list and give you updates, you're probably not going to get much of a reaction. But if you promise them something of value, like for instance, if I was running a t-shirt shop, which I do, I would offer a coupon. Get 25% off your next order in your email here. Get discounts. I think with the event promotion, I actually do the website for a Lucha Libre company. And with them, it's enter here and we'll be giving away tickets for shows and stuff. And so, but basically the point is you offer a visitor something of value so that they will give you their email address. In this case, it was the short story, The Musician's Daughter. I put it on my website. I advertise it in the back of my books. And when people sign up for it, they get added to the email list and they get a welcome email and they get an email with the download link for the book. And, and so that's how it works. And I've been able to amass, a decent amount of emails. It's in the hundreds. It's not in the thousands yet, but it's in the hundreds. And these people are my audience. And that's how you have to look at it. It's because the people that have went through the trouble to give you their email to read that story, that have presumably read your other books, these people are your fans. These are people who are into what you're doing and will buy what you're selling and, are into it. Like when you advertise on a social network, like if you're on Facebook and you're doing your posts and stuff, and people might think you're funny and they might like, what you say and they might agree with you, but that doesn't mean they're going to buy from you. But on the flip side of that, people who have read your books and found the email, the lead magnet, and then went and entered their email to receive a free story from you. These are people that like your stories. These are people that when you come out with new books, you need to advertise them to these people because they are more likely to get these books than people who are cold. They're what we call a warm lead or a hot lead, instead of a cold lead. And you build these people and you build this up and you get these hundreds of people. right now, if Facebook or X or TikTok or even YouTube, went out of business, well, I've still got those several hundred people who are hot for my writing, who are into my writing, and that's my audience, and I get to carry those people around with me. So that's cool. And that's not to say that some of the social networks aren't making advancements in these areas. I know Blue Sky, I know there's a lot of these that are decentralized where it's a new thing, it's the Fediverse that they're working on, where you can take your audience from network to network with you. And I think that's cool. And that is a whole lot better than the centralized versions that you see with Facebook, where if you leave Facebook, you can't take all your Facebook followers and bring them to, say TikTok with you. It just doesn't work like that. But for the time being, to me, the newsletters are a way to stay engaged with people as long as you use it. Don't just send them something to, that's a whole nother story, but don't just send them something to, hey, this is for sale this week. Reach out to them on a regular basis and be like, this is what's going on in my life. I'm working on this project. I'm working on that. How are you guys? And, you foster a relationship with your readers, and then they will be more likely to support your projects as you go forward. And that is very useful for staying in touch with readers. It's very useful for keeping them informed. It's very useful for keeping an audience warm if you take a long time between cranking out books, which I have occasionally done. But that's a story for another time. The point is, you need an email list. It gives you a way to keep your following. And that ties into having a website too, but that's a whole different video. But, the email newsletter with the lead magnet is a great way to keep people and build your own audience that is yours, that you can take with you wherever you want. And that way you're not dependent on any one social network for your success. But anyway, that's the story for today. That is the episode for today. That is my lesson, is build your own brand on your own terms. If you enjoyed the episode, give me a like, give me a subscribe, maybe share it with your friends, and tune in next week when we have yet another episode every Monday. We'll see you later on the Ronin Author.